Welcome to Aggie Talk. My name is Patrick Figueroa. I'm your host. I'm here with Miles Miles Roach, Will Wybomb Wyman, Josh Caldwell, and Omar Navarro. Today, our main segment is probably going to be the NBA recap of the second round of the playoffs. But we're going to start with some NFL talk. The big news in the NFL is Carl Nassib, the edge rusher for the Oakland Raiders, came out as gay, and he being the first active gay player in the NFL. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
I think it's huge for the NFL, quite frankly. We saw it happen with Michael Sam. This dude very obviously should have been like a second, maybe third round pick. He had the production to prove it. He even played pretty well in the preseason. And then, the Rams cut him and he never really got a chance in the league. And I think that's because back then, I don't even really know when that was, but a couple years back, just LGBTQ people were not respected. And it's nice to see now in 2021, after we've kind of had a reckoning with the way that minorities and people in the LGBTQ community have been treated over these past, all of history, quite frankly. I think it's nice to see, his jersey's number one on Fanatics. Apparently, he's getting a lot of support from the NFL community. And I think it's a really big step in the right direction because, everyone knows there's gay people everywhere in society. There's no single industry that doesn't have a gay person living there. It's just about being in a state where we can have gay people feel comfortable to come out. And I think Carl Nassib, big shout out, big props to him for having the courage to do that.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I mean, with news this big, I'm just really glad that he was able to be comfortable enough to come out because it's really not an easy thing to do whatsoever. Especially as a pro athlete, a male pro athlete. I think you're if someone is gay, they're more likely not to come out until after they're done playing because of fear of maybe I'm going to be treated differently in the locker room, by the team, by the media. But I'm like Miles said, I'm just glad that we've kind of gotten to a point where, he could come out and the support he got was crazy. I mean, I saw JJ Watt, Saquon, I saw those supporting him, big props because it's oftentimes it's really a burden so him coming out, especially in the NFL, that's seen as this, macho sport, that's probably, all the testosterone, pumping and everything. And, to be able to have that in the NFL, it's huge because I don't know how you guys feel, but I would say that the NFL is probably like the you would think it's the least possibly supportive of this just due to the nature of the game and the how everyone is. And I just hope that, Miles mentioned about, Michael Sam, and I just hope his play isn't really extra scrutinized because of this. When Michael Sam came out, I mean, he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. That's the SEC. So there's definitely, he should have gotten a fair shot, but that kind of, took him to, it kind of brought him down seventh round and he didn't really get a shot. So I just hope that, his play isn't scrutinized. And again, big props to him. It's not an easy thing to do or carry. So for him to be able to, be his true self and all that, I wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, I think that he's not. He came out and he's not like a different guy. He's the same dude. It's just that he is now in a place where he can make that known to the whole world, which huge respect to him for doing that. And there's such a stigma around in pro sports, like you said, but especially in the NFL. Hopefully he has the support of his teammates and especially the front office, because I know that NFL front offices can be kind of iffy and owners can be kind of iffy about certain social issues. But the fact that he was able to do that and that he had the overwhelming support is a huge step. And hopefully this is a step where more gay athletes feel comfortable being themselves, because that's really what it's all about. If you're able to be yourself and do the profession that you love, that's awesome. And he's breaking barriers so that people might not even need to make a big deal about it in the future. They can just say, I'm gay, and then they can still play in the NFL and not be scrutinized for it and not feel like they're going to be treated differently.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what all of you said.
Josh.
It's really just great to see someone be open and be themselves. as open as they want to be, because with Michael Sam, it really did kind of backfire on him. And it's because of the stigma around the NFL. So same thing. I just hope he's accepted by his locker room mates, and I hope they don't treat him any differently. And you're right. Hopefully we'll get to a day where it's not that big a deal. They can just be themselves on and off the field, and it doesn't affect who they are as a person.
Also, I want to just mention I believe it was called the Trevor Project. That's what he was donating to. That is I mean, just hearing what he was talking about, like how it's like, just like having one person support you and like accept you decreases the odds that you commit suicide by 40% for LGBTQ members. I just think that's such a great cause. And, like people are matching donations. I believe the NFL matched the donation. Other teams said like, they'd also be donating to foundations like that. Like, I think that's I think that's a really good thing that he did. And, again,
yeah, it wasn't like he just came out just to come out. He came out for like a good cause. And I think that's another reason why his jersey has gotten that boost and why the NFL has jumped behind him so well. Not too long ago, the NFL would have fired this man and and gone about their business. So I think it's really good that he came out, not just for himself and for his family, but also for a good cause.
Yeah, 100%. Really seems like I was really happy just seeing like the responses too, like just seeing other players tweet at him saying like, hey man, like you're still like, you're still a part of the brotherhood. We're always going to stand by you. And I just think that's such a good sign. And like the Raiders who, they haven't, their social media team did make a pretty major, like, I guess, tone deaf.
Yeah, they've been rough lately.
Yeah, they did it a lot better this time, just saying like, we stand by you. And then like, that's learn from your mistakes at the very least. So unless you guys have anything else you want to add on, we can move on to the MLB and maybe get into the sticky situation. Unless any of you guys, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna just want to finish off by saying that like, obviously there was a lot of support, but social media isn't exactly the most supportive place. So I saw a lot of people saying, why is this a big deal, right? And it's like it's a big deal for this exact reason that we're talking about, because like in reality, like in a perfect society, this wouldn't, like, people could just be themselves and not have to be judged. But when you look at the NFL, there's like a bunch of veteran like journalists that say, oh yeah, there's definitely like players that are in the closet in locker rooms, but they're just afraid to come out because of that. So in a perfect society, that wouldn't matter. So him coming out is a huge deal. I think it's a, people minimize it and maybe try to change the reality of society and sports in general, of like that how sports fans are. Because I mean, I'll be honest, like I'm sure there's a lot of sports fans out there that either say like, why is it a big deal, or they don't like it for some reason or whatever. But I think when we come to grips with reality that it's like this and it's a big deal, it's not a common thing. So I hope that with this he can inspire others, and be their true selves. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, can he play? And if he could, and he's clearly shown that he could play. He's been in the league for a couple of years now, so it hopefully down the road it's something that's normal and people feel comfortable with it.
100% agree. He's breaking barriers, and you can only hope that he's going to make it an easier time for others that are like him. And, again, I like what you're saying, Omar. He's breaking a barrier that hopefully others will follow suit. It's good to finally have that foundation set, or at least hopefully it's set. So I guess we'll move on to our next topic of discussion. That is the MLB and the sticky substance situation that we're having with MLB pitchers, such as using foreign substances on baseballs. What do you guys think about that?
Good for baseball.
Quick question though. I feel like this has always been frowned upon in the MLB, like 100% frowned upon. So what changes it now?
I think it's the fact that there's more advanced sticky substances like sunscreen and rosin. Yeah,
but like greasing the ball has always been like, you don't do it. Like, and it's like up there with steroids. You know what I mean? Like, you don't do it in the game of baseball. And so when I found out about it, I was like, wait, I thought this was always the thing that you weren't supposed to do, or you wouldn't be in the MLB.
I think that they've been turning a blind eye to it a lot, and now they're
Yeah.
just trying to be a lot more diligent because of how things have ramped up and like hitting is down. So they want to try to remedy that, and they're going like way overboard now, and pitchers are like freaking out, like stripping in front of the umpires.
Yeah.
It's been fun to see.
Yeah, I've like honestly, Will hit it right on the nose. I was about to say that. The reality is that this is only a thing because I think it's a desperate move by Major League Baseball midseason to try to fix the offense. Because I think like I remember reading that like offense this season has been like the worst it's been in quite a while actually. So like, you know, they're trying to, I guess, improve the offense and stuff like that. But I mean, look, the reality is that this has really been a thing for like literally the history of baseball. This isn't a new thing. This is, you know, this isn't something that just came up about this season or last season. This has been a thing for a long time. And yeah, I mean, offense, like I said, offenses are terrible. So I just think it's a desperate move. And I have a, like, I get maybe like, you know, their reasoning behind it, but I have a huge problem with like the way they're handling it. And just basically like, you know, I don't know if you guys saw the Max Scherzer thing yesterday where like he got checked like literally every inning because Joe Girardi was like complaining to the umpire, like, you know, check him, and he got really mad. And I would too. Like, I just think like, you know, what happened, and Sergio Romo, same thing. He did, same thing happened to him. I don't know if you guys saw that. Like, I think it's just ridiculous. You know, if they want to keep this, you know, for the long term, I think they have to find a way to really fix it because it looks bad on the, like yesterday, it looked bad on the league and the teams that, you know, they're basically accusing you of using this, right? They're accusing you of trying to, I guess, would it be cheat the game? I don't know, right? And for someone that's not doing it, like Max Scherzer is like, your team just can't hit me. You know, I'm just, you know, you don't got to be checking me for substances every game. So yeah, I just think it was. I get the premises of it, but they're gonna have to do a lot of things to kind of improve it and the optics of the situation too.
They definitely
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing it like in the middle of an inning either. Like that just
Yeah.
like I think one of the reasons Matt Scherzer got really mad was the fact it's throwing off his rhythm. Like, you know, when you're dealing like and you just like they have to stop you when you're in the middle of that, like it could get really annoying. Also, I just think handling it mid-season wasn't the best thing to do. Like they should have like really put their foot down at the start of this season because like right now, like going like one half, like a good half of the season with sticky stuff and then having to adjust and not having it, it's like it's gonna have a toll on pitchers. I mean, Tyler Glasnow already like he's on the 60-day IL because of like the. I mean, he claims that it was because he had a switch and it like he had to grip the ball harder. That kind of like caused some. It may have what caused his injury. So I didn't really like how they didn't like put their foot down at the beginning of the season to this when they had full knowledge of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to touch on, was that exact interview that kind of showed me the whole full magnitude of it. And the way he described it was that he wasn't even like using some of like the gnarlier stuff. That I think Trevor Bauer is the one that is pioneering that. And he said he's only using the sunscreen and resin on his arm, which apparently is not even that bad. And just help him grip the ball a little bit. And so he had to grip the ball harder, which resulted in him blowing out some ligaments in his arm, which is not good. So I think if they do want to crack down on it, they should, but doing it mid-season is problematic for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
And they're cracking down on it like, sorry, Myles, they're cracking down on it like out of nowhere. It's like from here to skyrocketing. Like there is no checks, and now it's like 3 times an inning.
Yeah, and a 10-game suspension, right? If you get caught, like it's just seems like Rob Manfred has no idea how to run a major sports league. Like the dude is very obviously all in it for profit, and when offense is down, he's like, well, I guess we gotta have this random change because like if you know baseball, like it's the cheating sport. Everyone is cheating all the time in baseball to try to get that extra edge. We saw it with the Astros. You know, sign stealing is like part of the game. The rosin on pitchers. You know, all these things. It is like the unwritten rules of baseball. So I think they need to pick a lane and either allow pitchers to, get an extra grip with whatever substances they want, but like regulate it. So like you say, maybe sunscreen and rosin is fine, but like whatever Trevor Bauer's using isn't. But I also just think like, why should we allow like these obviously impactful changes to happen like every year in baseball. You know, like there was the whole juiced ball phenomenon in 2017 or whatever. And like all these years, all of a sudden, like the ball isn't juiced anymore. And then pitchers aren't allowed to use these things. Like baseball, I just think needs to pick a lane and like stick to it. So the players have some understanding of what is allowed and why. And I think that just makes the game a lot better for everyone involved.
I also think the MLB is kind of like throwing players under the bus because they've known about this for like 3 years and never did anything. Like this isn't some new phenomenon. Like Trevor Bauer was literally talking about it. Like MLB isn't doing anything about it, so that's why he chose to do it. Like again, they didn't want to. So it's like, yeah, it's a rule not to do that, but if MLB isn't enforcing it, like why wouldn't you when it's gonna make you more money and allow you to help your team win if you're throwing better? Like you're gonna take that advantage if MLB isn't enforcing it. And I feel like MLB now like saying like, okay, we're gonna be more strict now, and like, you know, it's the players' fault. Like they're trying to make it like, oh, it isn't on us, it's more on the players. Which yeah, some of it should be on the players, but the fact that the MLB wasn't enforcing it for the past 3 years is what like I think they deserve a lot more like blame for what they've done than the players should.
Yeah, and I think like this is what happens when someone that has no baseball experience is running the league, right? Like this, like we can go. I think we can probably fill up the whole show of talking about Rob Manfred, and I'm sure if Ryan was here, he can talk about Rob Manfred too because we know his thoughts on him too. But yeah, I actually heard one option, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. I can't remember by who it was, but of like the possibility of like the way you can kind of maybe fix this is somehow punishing teams who managers call for a check and it comes out that he has nothing. Like I don't know exactly like how they would go about this, or what can they do? Maybe can they give them like a start the inning with someone on first maybe, or something, like just something along those lines of like, I'm so curious to hear you guys' thoughts, but like I feel like they have to punish or limit this in a certain way, because you can't just have the managers every inning coming out and saying like, oh, check him just because your team can't hit him, right? So like, I want to get your guys' thoughts on that or possible solutions to it.
Personally, I mean, I'll go. What I think is they shouldn't even allow managers to challenge that. Like I feel because they automatically do checks. Like after the first inning, they do a check, and I think about like the midway point, like around the fifth or something, they'll do another check, like just to make sure. So I just don't think like they should listen to managers like when they ask for that. Like if they still allow managers, then yeah, like I think they should. If a manager gets it wrong, there should be some sort of punishment. I think allowing them to get on first base or something would be a pretty solid one. But for like, I just don't think managers should have that much control to be able to say like whenever they want, like, hey, go check them. I'd rather, they're like have full control of that and decide like when.
Yeah, with the Scherzer thing you're talking about too, how it was messing with his flow, that could totally be a strategy that a manager could use. And if they know someone's dealing, say, hey, let's go check them. And then it messes with the rhythm, and then maybe they do get a hit regardless of what the situation is. So I think limiting that with a person on first, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like another like I like your idea, Pat. Maybe kind of implementing a thing where like it's just like a routine, right? Like there's not managers can tell you this, but more of like, every third inning, right? The umpire goes out and checks, or like it could either be like something like a routine, or if the umpires themselves suspect something or see something, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think you can have, like you said, Will, it can ruin the rhythm of a game. You can't have a manager, mad that his team can't hit the pitcher and it's like, all right, let me stop this game for however long it takes, excuse me, and just like, you can't really have that. I think you're building something that's possibly quite dangerous, especially like once you get down to the playoffs, right? The postseason, like this could be in the playoffs when like momentum is everything. It could be something, that's could be trouble, and we're already seeing it just like the first week.
Yeah, imagine
That was going to be my. Go ahead. Will, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead. I was gonna say like they could just ice a pitcher, like in the playoffs, just ice him. But You go.
Yeah, no, that's all I was gonna say. Like that would be the best thing in the playoffs. Like it would be the best move a manager could make. Like every inning, just ask, yo, he's check him every single time. But yeah, I think it's the MLB definitely has to crack down on the issue itself. But how it shouldn't be in the hands of the manager. It should definitely be in the hands of the umpire to decide when to check. If they're going to check them at like the bottom of the second, or I think they should at least get checked twice. If that's already happening, then that's how you solve the issue, and you keep it that way. It would be cool to start every inning with somebody on first, though, just because the manager got it wrong.
I believe like right now it's like they check them before they enter the game and they check them after like the first inning, and then like that from there on, like they might just check them if they're suspicious, and then like, or if the manager challenges. All I want them to do is just remove it where like the manager can challenge and just like do it.
Or maybe
without
the
questioning.
manager only gets like one challenge, and then like if he's wrong, then he doesn't get to use another one. Like kind of like how the NBA did it, where like if you're wrong, like you don't get another one, you don't get a second chance. But that is exactly when guys would like start greasing. So
That's what I was about to say that, Josh. I think I actually thought about that, because when you sent like the rundown of like what we're talking about, I thought about that as like a possible maybe solution. But then I thought like if a team runs out of like their challenges or whatever, then the player can just be like, oh, they're not going to check me anymore, right? Like they can't call me out on it. So then they start using it, and then it's that's what I'm saying. Like it has to be more of a routine. I don't think you can have something like the managers are in charge or things like that. Like it has to be some kind of a routine.
If that's about what we got there with that topic, we can move on and maybe talk about some of these standings right now. We are almost at the halfway point. I believe we're about 70, a good bit over 70 games played. And right now the standings are, I mean, there's still a lot of time. I mean, we still got like 100, like 90 more games to be played, but we can definitely already know who isn't going to be competing. But what do you got? What are some of the standings that might stand out to you guys right now?
I just think of like I always bring. I mean, obviously, the obvious thing to say is like the NL West. The top three is, they're right. They're all right there, right? And it's probably going to come down to the wire. Although, as I mentioned before, I have my questions on the Giants. I know Bob's not here, but he would have something to say about that. But I have my question about the Giants and whether they can sustain this. But I just think I look at like I don't know. Maybe I was like too hopeful, but I don't know. The rest of the NL, like aside from the NL West, like I don't know. There's not really a team that stands out or pops out to me, right? Like the NL Central, it's like the Brewers are in first and the Cubs are in second, but is anyone really like seeing them as possible contenders? And when you look at the NL East, the Braves have disappointed me, as I've mentioned before. I was really high on them. Like it's kind of like in the middle, so I don't really know like how to feel about everyone else in the NL.
Well, as I know you're a Mets fan, I kind of want to know because like I feel like the Mets can compete with their pitching. Like their pitching has been pretty legit. Their bats haven't exactly been as good, but I feel like with the Mets pitching, they could cause some havoc. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think our pitching is a strength. Unfortunately, we just found out that Joey Lucchesi tore his UCL, so he'll be done for the year. He was pitching really well too. He had like a .9 ERA over his last 5 starts. But I mean, we've gotten really good seasons so far out of Taiwan Walker, who's been like surprisingly good. And then Marcus Stroman, he left his last start with an injury, unfortunately, but he's been pitching pretty well too. Obviously DeGrom is like, I think he's the favorite for NL MVP now because he's just dominant, but I don't think that'll happen. Eventually it'll go to a hitter probably, but he's just been like otherworldly this year. The dude just throws absolute gas. Like no one can catch up to his fastball, and his breaking stuff is just dirty. So, I mean, it's enjoyable to watch him. I think we've got obviously like every year the Mets have health issues. We've had Conforto, Alonso. I mean, Lindor has been healthy, but he's been pretty bad to start. He's starting to round in form. But I mean, I'm looking forward to how we look in August, because I think hopefully by then we'll have Syndergaard back. Maybe we'll have some more health in the field. So hopefully the offensive bats will start to wake up, because I mean we're relying on like Jonathan VR and like these bums we just picked up off the street just to get us any sort of production on the offensive end. So I mean I'd say I'm pretty excited that they're in first place after having kind of a pretty injury ravaged start to the year.
And to get on your point, Miles, about Stroman, I remember seeing that he's like everything came back clean, so it should just be like he should be back soon. But yeah, the Mets have not really had the injury luck on their side, but yeah, I mean they bounced back, because I remember the beginning of the year, everyone was just like, the New York media, like everyone was just like, what's going on with the Mets, like did they make a mistake and all this, and yeah, I was glad to see like they kind of refocus and stuff like that, but still a long way to go. With baseball, this summer is like once you get to like August, that's when you start really seeing like, the teams that are going to be legit, that are going to compete, especially after the trade deadline, which this year might have some interesting names, Trevor Story, possibly the Yankees, things like that. But yeah.
I also want to say about Jacob deGrom, when you have more RBIs than earned runs, I think that honestly, if we were giving the MVP right now, he'd probably win it again. I don't know if he could sustain that. That's really hard, but from my first year of watching baseball, he seems like he's a god. So who knows with him? I like the Brewers. I've seen their pitching's also really good. Like Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, they've been really good this year. I think I'm missing another one, and yeah, I mean, I think they could potentially be competing, but I still am probably looking at one of the teams in the NL West, whether it be the Dodgers or the Padres, to probably be the ones that emerge from the NL. I don't know if we want to talk about the AL, like in the Yankees, how they're kind of making their comeback. The AL East is looking pretty interesting as a whole.
No, let's not talk about them on this one. I mean, we're only 5.5 back, so it's not that bad. But the way that Vladimir's been hitting the ball, the Blue Jays will probably pass us. We'll see what happens. But the AL East, as much as I hate to say it, halfway through the season, we either need to hit that second stride right now, or the Red Sox are taking it, and we're probably dropping down to fourth.
I mean, the Rays are kind of also on a skid. They've lost 7 in a row. They're up right now, but they're struggling. So who knows? I mean, the Red Sox, the fact that they're this competitive this year is pretty interesting, because I could have sworn everyone was talking about like how they weren't going to be that good because they didn't really seem to want to be that good. Like they were selling, they didn't want to spend money. So unless there's any final points you want to hit about baseball, we can move on to the NBA.
I was going to say, it's kind of off topic, but I know the NFL is trying to, or not the NFL, the MLB is trying to like reach out to a younger audience and like reinvigorate the crowd, and they have like game of the week on YouTube for free. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool feature. I actually watch baseball on occasion because I'll be on YouTube. I'm like, all right, well, there's a baseball game right there. I'm not doing anything else. I might as well watch baseball. So I think that's a pretty good way to encourage viewership, because of how like lazy and like how unfocused like our generation is, where if you put like, if that's the top video on YouTube, I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. So I think it's a pretty good way to attract new viewers. And like, maybe if there's a cool franchise playing that game, then that's a new fan right there. And maybe that's a long time fan.
Anyway. The thing that I agree, Will, that it's really important, but I think baseball's issues stem from the lack of control when it comes to local TV markets. As we've seen, as a longtime Dodger fan, I remember like not being able to watch the games, and I know that that's the case in a lot of other cities as well. So trying to figure that out would be huge, but also like the YouTube games are at like 10 a.m. like our time, so it's like like how much viewers are you really getting? So put like a at the prime time game or something, right? Like don't just don't just like put it like just in the middle of the day when like no one's watching on a random Tuesday. So yeah. And Jacob deGrom, future Dodger.
Is that Chris Pratt?
It is Jacob DeGrom, actually.
Is that
Yeah, no,
Moneyball star Chris Pratt?
What happened? What happened, Pat?
Oh no, I just laughed at the joke. I was just gonna say like I think like they're also gonna have to do a little bit. I think they're improving in this regard, but marketing their top players, like their top young players, you know, like just I don't know if you guys watched Wander Franco's debut yesterday. They did. I feel like they did a pretty good job marketing that and hyping that up. Like, and he delivered. So I know a lot of people were looking out for that, and I think they need to keep doing more stuff like that, making sure they're like promoting like their younger players. They've done that with Tatis. They're doing that with Vladdy Jr. and Ronald Acuna. So if they can continue that, always keep us updated on like who's got next. Like again, like a Wander Franco in this case, like I think that'll also help them continue to grow because just seeing Wander actually deliver on all the hype was insanely cool. And it's like, okay, I'm actually really intrigued by him and I want to continue following.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of young talent in Major League Baseball. Like, you mentioned Wander Franco. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is like, the most like if you keep up with baseball, he's really good, but you don't really get like, media coverage of him. Could it be like, he's in Toronto or whatever? Maybe. Like, but he's a legit like star. Like I've seen people say like obviously it's only his second year, but I've seen people say like he has like more tools than his dad did, and his dad was this all-time this great player, right, for like a long time. So yeah, just somehow marketing their stars more, making it more available and stuff like that. But they're focused more on like is there does pitchers have sticky stuff rather than how can we promote the game and things like that. They just think the more offense we have, the more people are going to watch, but that hasn't really been the case, as we saw with the juice balls in like 2017.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on to the NBA now. Yesterday was one of the bigger events with the lottery happening and the Detroit Pistons essentially securing the first overall pick, probably going to be Cade Cunningham heading to Detroit. I did want to know, like, who are some of the guys that we should be looking out for that are probably going to be going in the lottery that you guys are liking?
The kid Mobley, who's like projected second. So I think it's good that the Rockets are going to get another big man. It's really good that Hakeem Olajuwon was the one who like was there because he was the last dominant big man that the Rockets had. So Mobley's got some crazy talented upside, it looks like. But Cade Cunningham said he was only going to visit one team, and that was the team who got the number one. And I don't know if it's good for Detroit or bad for Cade Cunningham, but we'll find out. But I'm definitely excited to see what Mobley does for Houston.
I think you're forgetting about Yao Ming when you said last dominant big man for the Rockets.
Yao Ming was not like people put Yao Ming on this poster, but he's not. He's Hakeem Olajuwon, though.
I know Hakeem Olajuwon's a lot better, but I was just thinking like,
I'm just saying Mobley has that kind of like upside to him. Like I think the way that he plays ball, he can get under you in the paint, or he can shoot outside. And when he's in the paint, he gives me Hakeem Olajuwon vibes.
Okay, I can respect.
But you're right. Yeah, I got to give respect to Yao Ming. I'm not just going to dust off Yao Ming like that.
Yeah, I'm a big Yao Ming stan. I won't stand for that.
I think like I don't know how I feel about the Rockets taking Mobley. As I mentioned yesterday, like I think number 2 is between Cade and Mobley. But I don't know how I feel about the Rockets taking another 7-footer after what we've seen from Christian Wood this year. Obviously he was hurt, but I mean, are you gonna run like a 2 7-footer lineup in 2021? Right?
Nah, but Christian Wood could play the 4, and I mean, or he can play the 5 until Mobley is ready to play the 5. But I think with Christian Wood, what we did see early in the season is he's a big guy that needs to prove himself. And on Houston, I think they're at a crossroads right now where they're like, yo, Christian Wood could give us the production we need. But I think the reason they picked Mobley is because his upside is better than Christian Wood's ceiling, if that makes sense.
Also, I think Christian Wood is on a really tradable contract. So if a potential contender is looking for like a stretch five with 2 years left on his deal, pretty good money. I mean, the Rockets they're tearing it down and trying to rebuild. So I think Christian Wood is a valuable asset for them if they're trying to like get other young players who might fit better with Evan Mobley. Because I think he's clearly the second best prospect in the draft to me. Like he seems like he's that unique big man that can guard 1 to 5, like, and actually like move his feet well enough to stay in front of guards. He's shown some ability to shoot jumpers, which is really impressive. Even though like I think he was playing like next to big men in USC a lot, so there wasn't much spacing. So I think he's the clear number 2 in the class. I'm interested in who you guys think is the number 3, because I've been seeing a lot of people say now it's Jalen Green, just because like you watch his highlight video. I think someone put it in the Aggie Talk group chat. The dude just has bunnies, and he's reminiscent of Zach LaVine because like he can also hit step back threes. He can also like his dribbling's his handle's a little weak sometimes, but there are flashes where you're like, whoa, if this dude can like put it together, he's an unguardable like 25 point per game scorer. So I mean, obviously the Suggs hype happened because of he's a great player, but also because the tournament story and Gonzaga's dominance. So just I was wondering what you guys think. Who do you think is the number 3 player in this draft?
I actually mentioned it in the chat, but I actually have Jalen Green as number 1. I have Jalen Green as number 1, and Cade and Mobley like alternate number 2 depending on who had the second pick. Obviously, I still think Cade is going first, but I think overall Jalen Green is going to be the best player in the draft. And I just think because like you mentioned, like he has bunnies, like he's crazy athleticism. He has great vision too. Like he's he can pass the ball for a 2 guard. I just think he really suffered from the fact that he played in the G League, and maybe there wasn't as many eyes on him, publicly to show. But I mean, he really has everything. He's explosive. He can shoot the ball. He shot like almost 37% from 3 in the G League. So like he can shoot the ball. He has that step back, side step too. Like he's really good at those, which for a player that's young, that's really something you develop kind of like later. But to have that like in your game when you're coming into the league, I think it's huge. And he's still super young. So I think, after it was funny because after the lottery, so I tweeted like before the lottery, like Jalen Green's gonna be the best player. And it was funny because after the lottery, it seemed like Cavs fans found my tweet because like they were like liking and like commenting. And there was a guy that said like, his release would get blocked a lot in the NBA. And I think, and like my reply to that was, I think his ability, his quickness and his ability to have that step back or have that, sidestep, I think it's big because, you don't see young players come in with that already. So I think, I don't know. I don't think Jalen Green will go number 1, and I don't even think he'll go number 2. I would love to see him at number 2, but if he ends up, I will say, if he ends up in Toronto, I would be a bit concerned if I was in the East because, if you have that backcourt of Van Vliet and Jalen Green, I think they can. I think that could be some trouble. I'm not gonna lie. I think that could be some trouble.
Quick question for you guys, a little off topic, but Omar touched on it, and I just wanted to know you guys' opinion. Do you think that college players foregoing college and going straight to the G League, do you think it's good or bad for the NBA? Because like Omar said, he didn't get a lot of publicity, even though he was playing in the G League, and he played well in the G League, but he didn't get a lot of publicity to where his name is notable to give him the number 1 overall in the draft. He's a great player, but I'm just curious because you're seeing more and more players take the G League route, and it's great for them to get to the league. But do you feel like the NBA is setting up 2 different precedences by saying you have to have at least a year in college, but you could also go to the G League if you can ball enough?
I just think that it's a different standard that the league just isn't acclimated to yet. It's like the old school reference point has always been college. So if a player goes overseas or I guess plays this time in the G League, it's a little bit unfamiliar because it could really be swing or miss. And I think that people are a little bit more trustworthy of college just because that's what they're used to. So I think if the G League system stays in place and like the G League Ignite team stays in place for longer, it's going to make scouts and particularly the media more comfortable about it. And then the players might start to get more recognition. But I think it had to start. And I think that Jalen Green and like Jonathan Kuminga and those guys doing it gives it more weight and gives it a better precedent going forward. So I think that it will be more of a positive step moving forward. And it's not like he fell out of the top 5. Like he's still undisputed going to be like a top 5, top 4, maybe even top 3 pick. But I do think it's going to take a little bit of time for people to get more comfortable with the fact that it's kind of dumb. Like when you really think about it, they're like, well, I haven't seen him play against college competition. Well, if you want to see him play against some like ratty state school, or do you want to see him play against 5 guys that were college studs or like came over from overseas? Like the G League level is head and shoulders of the college game, but it doesn't have the same notoriety because NBA fans are like, oh, these are the scrubs that can't make it in the league. But like 95% of the college players are scrubs that can't make it in the league. So I don't know. I think once they spend a little more time on it and there's more like weight surrounding the G League, it'll get more respect and the players will think it's a better route.
And the thing is that I also want to see this in like a regular year, right? I don't like, because I mean this year was weird with COVID. Like I think the G League didn't even happen. Like the regular season, like they had their bubble and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was a weird year. So I also think that kind of factored into it, because the way the NBA handled it, I mean, they had the bubble games at like 10 a.m. like on a Wednesday. Like, you know, we couldn't watch that, right? So like, I think it'll change once like the season comes back to normal. But I like Will's mentioned, these are pros. Like these are, you know, some people that are 28, you know, 30, even sometimes even 30, just like trying to make it into the league, and they're playing hard, you know, and he held his own. Like he really just held his own in the G League. So I don't think it's an indictment. I think, as you know, especially with like the whole college, you know, paying and stuff like that right now, like that's going on, you know, that whole thing, you know, maybe that'll change. Maybe we'll see less in the G League if players can start using their likeness. But I don't think it's a bad thing, because at the end of the day, you know, do you trust your scouts to be able to identify someone who's in college or someone who's in the G League, right? Like that's what it comes down to. And if your scouts are capable of doing it, it doesn't really matter.
I really just want to see more promotion of the G League. I'm honestly pretty excited for it, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but Stockton has its own G League affiliate, the Stockton Kings.
Stockton Kings, baby.
Me and Will are going to be the biggest Kings fans in this group. I mean, for, you know, different Kings, but yeah, like I'm probably, when that, again, like we have to definitely get to the point where we're actually allowed to go see those in person. So, but yeah, once that does happen, I'd probably go around and start checking them out, especially if, like, you know, especially if college players, like, or top recruits are choosing to go to the G League instead of like the instead of the NCAA. I would definitely be more inclined to go watch Stockton Kings game. Like, for example, like if I know that, say, Cade Cunningham was in the G League, like instead of the NCAA, I would have, and I see, oh, he's playing the Stockton Kings, like I'm gonna go watch that. Like, you know, again, it's gonna have to be a lot more promotion of the G League, and, you know, hopefully grow that even more.
Stockton Kings also are no slouch. Stockton Kings are great at developing talent.
I was gonna say they're actually really good.
Yeah, the Stockton Kings are good at developing talent because the Kings never give those players a chance and they always leave, and then they end up playing for other teams that are really good. But I had to look up Jeremy Lin's G League stats, because Jeremy Lin is one of my favorite NBA players, and they didn't give him a chance after he averaged 19.8 points, 3.2 boards, 6.4 assists, and shot 50 from the field and 42 from 3. Give him a contract. Now he's going to go play in China again. He just signed again to play in China, and he's coming to the end of his basketball playing days. I don't think he's ever going to play in the NBA again, and I'm heartbroken. It's ridiculous.
We'll see him in the big three. He'll be back at some point.
I didn't even know that about the Stockton Kings. That's cool to find out because again, like I didn't know that. Like that's just cool to find out. Like, so yeah, I might have to go check them out now.
Yeah, they Gabe Vincent, he grew up in the area. He played for the Stockton Kings. Now he got playoff minutes for the Heat.
He was a UCSB guy too, right?
Yeah. I think yeah.
Big West alum. So a lot of things we can connect there. Not to get too existential, but I don't know if you guys saw the Supreme Court decision that basically allowed athletes to make money off of their name and likeness. And I think that is likely to basically make the the NCAA's business model unsustainable to the point where I think the NBA needs to start going down the route of European soccer. Instead of allowing AAU and like all of these like private coaches and whatever to like control all this BS, like recruiting and having these 12-year-old kids go to these camps and whatever and tournaments. Why don't we just have NBA teams or G League teams even have like academies where you have kids like go there, get the best training and like the best like coaching possible. And like you can pretty much know if someone's going to be a good player by their like 13 or 14, 15 age. There's no point in like having to do this facade of like, oh yeah, Ben Simmons go to LSU for one semester and then leave immediately and get drafted for millions of dollars. Like Ben Simmons didn't need to do that, you know, like these guys should be able to get paid and they should be able to have like the best access to NBA training and like coaching, I think.
That is a very, very
great idea.
Interesting point. I had not even thought about that. And then also, I mean, if we're going to dip into European soccer, why not dip into the European loan system? Let's say you got an 18-year-old that's like super low down in your depth chart. You got like 6 good point guards. Let him go play in Real Madrid for a year and see how he develops over there. And then you got, this is a great idea. And then you can cross-pollinate. You get players in from overseas, send them overseas to play a little bit, let them develop, learn. Wow. That's the best idea I've ever heard, Miles.
I mean,
I agree. That would be a different level than the G League. And all of these academies, all of these kids that go to these academies, including like LeBron James's son is playing like AAU right now. He shouldn't have to do that. His dad is LeBron James.
Yeah.
Like, so that an academy would be great. And the loan system would be even better because Jeremy Lin wouldn't have to go play in China. He could just be. I'm just saying, like it's smart idea, Miles. You might have been onto something.
That's incredible.
I think we need to get you on the line with Adam Silver. I think we
get him on the
right. Hold on, let me make a couple calls.
I just think like it would help the NBA, right? If you can have like the Zion Williamsons and the Brandon Ingrams and like these top tier prospects that everyone knows from like the age of 14 are going to be NBA prospects. Like, don't make them go through all these dumb AAU circuits and stuff. Like, put them with an NBA team in their like quote unquote academy or whatever you want to do and allow them to get the best development possible. I think that helps the game more than anything.
And then they're also doing Omar, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like you mentioned that European soccer, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think European basketball has the same thing too, right? Like Luka was with Real Madrid since he was like 12 years old?
Yeah.
And then
he started with his local Slovenian team and then they bought him and then he goes to Real Madrid.
Exactly. So like something like that would be great because I mean, let's be honest. I don't know if you guys have ever watched an AAU game. They're not getting any like basketball, and they're not getting like some like elite coaching or elite training. It's like
like some kids playing with some kids who might be talented. You know what I mean?
It's the best kid's dad coaching.
Exactly. Yes, basically.
Exactly. And then like you just see a lot of like, from what I've seen at least, like I'm not like a huge, I'm not gonna say like, oh, I know the AAU in and out, but like most of these teams are just like run and gun, right? Like just get quick points. Like there's really no defense. Like there's really legitimately no point other than getting notoriety, getting that attention of, look at what this guy did in the AAU game. Look at this dunk he did. Look at this, and that's I think that's a great point, Miles, because like if you start them out at a young age, chances are like the product will improve. Like there's not, whatever an AAU dad what teaches you in like whatever summers you play or whatever tours, like it's obviously not going to it's not going to matter once you get, if you plan on playing in college. And your point about like the college system not being like sustainable, I think you're kind of right. Cause like, I think, the whole reason the NCAA got this huge was because they were able to make money off of everyone. Right. So now if they're not making money off of them, like, what is there really for them to do? Right.
Yeah, and I think also the NBA has been establishing like academies and like little mini leagues. They have one in Africa that they just established. They have like a bunch of stuff going on in Asia, and same thing in Europe. So if they can start like dotting these academies around, like around the world, and then they can send out their like best international guys and like pick up like their most trusted guys from the area, then they can have a combination of local scouts and American scouts and coaches, and they send their guys over there to develop these guys, and they see what's out there. And then the teams can come in and say, hey, I want to give you a contract, little 13-year-old from, I don't know, like Nigeria or something. You're going to be a great basketball player. I'm going to pick you up, and you want to come over to Los Angeles and play for the Lakers Academy? And then you have that pipeline of talent where you can develop kids from younger ages from overseas. And like, if I'm sure like the way the NBA is marketed in China, if you like offered some 12-year-old in China the chance to come be a part of an NBA academy, he would be like, yeah, I'll come do that. And then you can develop them from a young age. And then I think that would also help the NBA globally and help them develop more overseas players and bring more overseas players than they already are bringing in.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I thought. Like, this system would grow it even more globally. Like, even though it's extremely popular in China, like, say, like, they have, like, a few kids that they know are over there in the United States, and, like, they'll, like, countries are going to be really invested into this and, like, want to know, like, who's going from their country and potentially become, like, a big name in the NBA. I think that'd be really cool. It'd be definitely, like, I think get more countries interested in basketball.
Yeah, and like, Miles hit the point of like, like what are these players really doing in 1 year of college, right? Like, are they getting associates or whatever? Like, like what do you think Cade Cunningham did at Oklahoma State this year?
They're literally just there to play basketball and party. Like, and while one leads into the other more often than not, the education they get is nothing. So if you want to play basketball professionally, the academy is really the smartest idea, because you get to play with guys professionally at the professional level, and that takes you to that next level to where you could play in the NBA.
Like,
I really like the idea, Miles. Like, that's really smart.
Yeah, and like the thing is that, like, okay, I can recall my first year of college. If I left, right, and this is like just me being strictly a student, if I left after my first year, there's absolutely no way I would care about it like for the rest of, like, I would just completely forget. It'd be in the back of my mind. Like, I wouldn't even be able to tell you, like, what I learned and things like that. So it's literally ridiculous, and the only reason it's still around is because, I mean, let's just be honest, the NBA works with the NCAA. It's like they make them money, and then they produce these players, because the only benefit like that these players get is just media attention and the tournament at the end of the year. So that stuffs the NCAA's pockets. So yeah, if the this new like Supreme Court passing and everything and eventually gets placed, I don't know how this like college sports model holds really.
Just think about how much excitement there would be if like Zion Williamson was playing for the Los Angeles Lakers affiliate academy when he was 16-year-old, like dunking, and we could have like ESPN covering it, or like it would just be like the G League on steroids, I feel like. And you would have just so much intrigue on these like 16, 17-year-old kids. So like by the time they're in the NBA, people know them. Like, it's not like, oh, who's this Trae Young guy, or like who's like, all these people, like I think the NBA really wants fans to have like personal connections with the stars. And if you can actually give them like, hey, this guy's playing like meaningful basketball on like an NBA affiliate, I think people would care about that a lot more than like watching the overtime or like House of Highlights, like Julian Newman, like AAU videos, or it's just like these dudes are doing run and gun and they're like taking a shot every 10 seconds and there's no real like commitment to like basketball excellence. It's just all about what's going to get me like the most Instagram followers.
I think the biggest issue with that plan though is that there would still be a draft then, right? It's like when you graduate from your academy, would you enter the draft class then?
So this is the thing that I'm interested in, because like we all love the NBA draft and it's like it's a lot of fun, but like I think it'd be kind of annoying, right? Because if you're like the Los Angeles Lakers and you have one of these guys in your academy, but then they enter the draft, I feel like you know more about them than any other team, so it's kind of an advantage. Whereas like that's why I think like maybe we should just go full into the European soccer model, where it's like, hey, if you're the Los Angeles Lakers and you find a talented like Luka Doncic kind of player when they're 12 years old and you like sign a contract with them, like then they're your player, and you watch and you are invested in their development. I think that'd be pretty cool. Obviously, like the reality of European education is that it's mostly guaranteed. So like if a kid goes to the academy, like it's not like a big deal that if it doesn't work out, they can still go to college basically for free and like not have to worry about it. Whereas in America, like what do they tell most poor kids? Become an athlete so you can get a scholarship to go to school. Like that's a complete joke. Like 0.1% of the athletes in high school are ever going to actually be good enough to get a full scholarship to a university to play basketball or football, right? So like I think we need to grapple with the fact that right now, like universities in this country are spending billions of dollars on athletics when it basically only it lines the pockets of a few massive schools and massive corporations like ESPN and CBS and all these people. And it doesn't really benefit the players, because, if you're like, I don't know, just think of like all of the players we loved in like college, and they're like these big time guys that ESPN can make tons of money off of, and then they don't do anything after, and they didn't get paid at all for it. And it was just like, oh, you just got exploited and basically only have like the highlights to show for it. You don't have any money or any like financial security.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a draft, because one of the problems in European soccer is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So the Lakers would swoop in and be like, hey, you don't want to go play for the Detroit Pistons, I'm sure, come play for the Lakers. So I think that it would basically be like a free agency situation for these 13-year-olds where the big markets would win. Because I don't think that there's going to be a kid that's like living in like some rural area of Europe that's like, do I want to live in Los Angeles or Milwaukee?
But the thing is like the thing is like that already exists in the NBA, right? Like when Anthony Davis wants out of the Pelicans, he picks the Lakers because they're the big market. So like the big markets always have an unfair advantage because we live under capitalism, and the rich always have like a better chance at success. So I think what we need to do then is like acknowledge that, try to make it as fair and regulated as possible, and also just like recognize that there will be like finite amount of spots in the Lakers academy, just like there's finite amount of spots in Manchester United's academy, right? So there's always going to be players that slip through the cracks. Like I remember like Gareth Bale, like he almost got cut from the team he was like coming up with because they didn't think he was good enough. And like it's hard to predict like how good a 12-year-old's going to be, but like with certain players, there's like this guy's going to be great. But I think definitely I hear that concern. I just think like it would still be a more equitable system, I think, for the athletes involved, because like even if you're going to Milwaukee instead of LA, like you're getting like $1 billion franchise investing in you and like giving you the best coaching to achieve your potential, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, this is by no means a perfect like solution, but I think just trending towards that direction could actually benefit the NBA more so than just trying to prop up college sports once it becomes obviously unsustainable.
Yeah, and I think like obviously, like you said, Myles, there's still like if this is something that it's not going to happen next year or 2 years, but if eventually comes to the point where college sports is dead, which I think by the way we're going, I wouldn't be like, completely shocked if in like 10, 15 years we see that like gone. But I think like in that idea, I would be against the draft and be more of like, a team develops their players and things like that, because it first of all, like it it makes teams like stop tanking. That's number one. And then it makes them like actually like have to do their jobs of, I actually have to scout, I have to look for this and that. So it avoid like it makes teams stop tanking, because they have to find these talents now, and they can't rely on, oh, I can just suck for a year or two and then get a high pick and then all of a sudden everything's gone, right? Like all my problems are gone. So yeah, I think it would eliminate that.
I think one other thing it would help solve is right now, like you were saying, like no one cares about the G League. But like when you look at like the MLB minor leagues, if there's like a top prospect playing like for the Sacramento affiliate of the San Francisco Giants, right? Like people are gonna go to that game to see, oh, let me see this guy. So I think if you have like the academy system and then you have like the G League as like a minor league system, you could like throw like a 17-year-old Zion Williamson out on like the whoever, like New Orleans Pelicans G League affiliate, and those numbers would be insane because it's his like first taste of any sort of like G League action. And then you can like start building the narratives around them, like when are they going to get called up to the NBA, all that stuff. Like I think the NBA is just missing out with the whole like facade of the draft, honestly.
I agree. But then I think you should still have some sort of draft with like the college players that still come out of college.
I don't think there's no way America's ever gonna like end like college sports. I think like there's just too many people who love it, and it is great. But yeah, it's a good
but there are players too, like Dame was a super low down recruit. Like he barely had any offers, and then he balled out all 4 years at Weber State, and then became a great NBA player. So I think there's now that would make it so that there's an option for the super talented teenagers to go immediately have high tier coaching and get a better chance to develop earlier. And then for the kids that are lesser down, it would give them way more opportunities, and there'd be way more spots open for kids to play college basketball.
100% agree. And hopefully the kids who do choose that route would be somewhat invested in their education and like.
Yeah. Oh, I think that would definitely, also you would probably see more college dynasties in that situation, because it would be more so the kids that want to go all 4 years and get an education and finish out their college.
It's a win-win.
Ironically, the New Orleans G League team isn't even in Louisiana. It's in Alabama.
Wait, how far away? What?
They're right next to each other, but
okay. I was gonna say where.
It's not even in Louisiana. So yes, it's very straight.
That is so funny. Yeah, because I know that there were a few times where Kyle Guy would play for the Stockton Kings and then suit up, drive from Stockton to Sac, and then sit on the bench for the Kings for like a nighttime game.
I love Kyle Guy though. He went to Virginia, great. So love Kyle Guy.
My friend has a Kyle Guy jersey just for that. He bought it immediately after the preseason game winner.
Can you
Very funny
that, like, South Bay Lakers once had THT and Caruso like just playing like in basically an empty gym, and like you're watching like legit rotation players in the NBA like just play. So that's actually pretty crazy. But yeah, I think I really like that conversation. I feel like it's a very interesting one that depending on where the college ranks go in the next couple of years, like it could be something that maybe picks up, or maybe something like along those lines that happens.
Yeah, great talk, guys. I guess we can move this into our round 2 recap of the NBA playoffs. Do you guys want to start with West or East?
We can start East.
All right, so East, both of the series went to 7. I guess we'll start with the Nets and the Bucks, which, I mean, that was a pretty great game 7, but overall that series, there were some pretty key injuries that did affect that. So what were your thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I want to start out by saying, like, obviously Kyrie and Harden being hurt played a major part, but
yeah, injuries.
In reality, the Nets could have and should have won the series because they had every opportunity to do so, even without those. And like Harden didn't do good because, he was, he had that hamstring problem or whatever, but he was still highly inefficient. And, you want to believe him. Obviously the injury, like playing hurt is not an easy thing whatsoever. But, you look at his playoff history and you're like, oh, maybe, maybe there was a little more to it. Maybe he just was bad because he was highly inefficient. I think he didn't make a field goal and he had like 12 points all from the free throw line, like in the first half. So yeah,
it's crazy that you say that he was highly inefficient because even in that loss of Game 7, he scored 22, and so he was still on the court being productive. He just wasn't efficient the way that we are used to James Harden being efficient.
Yeah, and like I also think like obviously like Kevin Durant had, probably like one of the best showings, playoff performances ever in Game 5. I just think in that Game 7 he just ran out of gas. If you're asking someone to play 2 48-minute games in the span of like less than a week, and then in the other game you ask him to play like 45 minutes, like you're not going to do that, especially with, by the way, like Steve Nash limiting his rotation to only 7 players. Like Jeff Green barely played in Game 7. Like, so I don't know, the offense just looked stagnant. After KD had that big game, you just kind of felt like it was like, all right, KD, here's the ball. Let's see what you could do. Can you make a play? Like, Joe Harris was awful. There was just like the Nets, obviously the injuries, like I said, big part. You have Kyrie and Harden there healthy, you probably win that series in like 5 or 6. But at the same time, a lot of the reasons the Nets lost were self-inflicting wounds. They could have easily won the series and could have won that Game 7.
Definitely. There were some really good games, and I don't want to say like I'm glad that players got hurt because they put their heart and soul into it. You don't want to ever see them injured, but it did make it a more interesting series. And that Game 7 is gonna that's a classic. Even everyone's gonna remember it as like the game where KD, if his foot was like a little bit smaller, it's the Nets win. Like it's really crazy.
If he was a size 16, that's a 3.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, again, it was still a really fun series. That was overall very enjoyable. And again, like just seeing like every time, like I'm really just was impressed with like how Giannis did perform. We already know he's a limited player, like in some of the sense that like he doesn't really have handles like that in his he can't really create his own shot or create shots for his teammates. But at the same time, like he still is making the most of it and really showed up in that Game 7. I mean, what do you have, like 40? Like he showed up. He did what he really did keep them alive and didn't back down. I don't know if this Bucks team would have done that last year.
I feel like everyone's having this like Ben Simmons discussion now, but Giannis shouldn't be the player that always has to take that shot. He shouldn't have to score 40 with the addition of Drew Holiday. And I feel like if Holiday doesn't step up, the Bucks right now, halftime, they're up 5. But if Giannis doesn't get some help, which is the issue that we ran into last year, if he doesn't get some help on the offensive end, then I feel like the Bucks are not winning the series against the Hawks because the Hawks have played defense, which is what has gotten them. I know I jumped to the other side of the East, but the Hawks have actually like been productive on the defensive end, which is how they've become this like, this is their We Believe season. This is when they become the Hawks that Trae Young knew that they could be. And I mean, I feel like Giannis just needs that help from Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. And last year, Middleton didn't step up. If Middleton steps up this year, Giannis doesn't have to score 40. If Drew Holiday scores 20, Middleton scores 20, they could win a game easily.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, like you guys said, Giannis was amazing, and he made his free throws, which I think was the biggest part because the Nets fans are trying to like taunt him by counting down or like counting to 10, but he went on a run where he made, I want to say like 6-7 straight free throws. Like he was money from the line, and
I feel like it helped him. Sorry about that, Omar, but like I'm not kidding. Like he was releasing it right before they said 13 every time. Like it really like allowed him to have a consistent routine. Like I'm not kidding with you when I say that. Like he was literally using them to like time up his like shot, and I really feel
Yeah,
like
it looked like he was like timing it. So whenever he would release, it was perfect. Yeah, he went on a run for like 6 or 7 shots, and the one he missed was one that they needed, but they still ended up winning the game, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's like when they were counting and in rhythm, he was counting in his head and dribbling, and it worked.
I'm just saying, if he like rises in like field goal percentage or like our free throw percentage for the rest of these playoffs, like we know who to thank. Like the Nets fans, like, because I swear I'm pretty sure he's gonna be counting in his head now. Like once he gets to this point, he's gonna release, and if we just see a rise, then the Nets just unlocked Giannis at the free throw line, and that's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, you guys mentioned Giannis's help. Middleton and Drew were pretty awful most of the game, but they, like, props to them, they showed up when they were needed. Drew Holiday, turned into like, Michael Jordan down the stretch. Like, he was just making everything. Chris Middleton, he's a completely different player at home than he was on the road. In game 6, he was amazing. And then game 7, he was pretty awful, but again, he came up when he was needed, right? Which is all you can ask for. And I just think, like, I still like you can't really get an uglier series win, I don't think, because like I said, like, they should have lost in that overtime. There's absolutely no way they should have won that game. And I Coach Bud probably won't get fired, barring like something crazy, but I just think it's hard for you to fire a coach that's made the conference finals and possibly going to make the finals. But I still have my questions on like his rotation, because Brook Lopez played a lot more than I would have liked, although he did make some crucial plays down the stretch, like the block on KD and stuff. But he shouldn't have really played that much, not against a team like Brooklyn that's running small, and they were literally hunting him every time down the court.
That's probably gonna be something we have to look out for. If that's about it for that series, unless you guys have anything you want to add, we could move on to the other Eastern Conference series with the Hawks and the Sixers, which also went 7. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, as previously stated, are we going to have this Ben Simmons discussion now? Because Ben Simmons is clearly like, you can't depend on Ben Simmons when a game is on the line, because he can't shoot from outside. And I think everyone knows the play where he drives the lane, catches his defender on his left side, and he could easily shoot the layup, but he passes out of the paint. Like, I feel like Ben Simmons, everyone wants him now. Like, all the small market teams, including the Spurs, want him right now. But I feel like Ben Simmons needs to develop that 3 in the off season, or he's not as productive to a team that whoever he ends up going to. But I think it was a great series. 7 games is pretty impressive, but same thing. Joel Embiid can't do it all himself. And Ben Simmons is also a first-round draft pick that should be productive on the offensive end, but we know him for his defense. He's an all-star for his defense. And Joel, who do you put around Joel to get them, the Sixers, over that hoop? Also, I feel bad for Doc Rivers, because this man cannot get out of the second round, no matter what team he is on, no matter what team he is coaching. He just cannot get out of the second round. I guess with Boston it helped, but but he cannot get out of the second round.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Ben Simmons, like, I think it could be two things. Either his confidence is shot, or the possibility exists that maybe he just doesn't really care about basketball like as much as we think, right? Like, that's always been a question around him. I've joined Aggie Talk since 2019, right? And I joined around the time of the playoffs, and we literally had the same discussion of, oh, but when Ben Simmons gets his jump shot, right? He can be a different player. It's been like 2 years, and even before that, that was a conversation. So, if he hasn't worked on it at this point, like, what can you really expect from him, right? Like, his defensive game isn't enough to mask his, offensive, being incapable on offense, right? So
what I'm worried about is that he is working on it, but it's it's not there for him, so he can't put that into his arsenal.
But like the thing is, he doesn't even try. Like just try. Like if you look, Lonzo, will say whatever you want about Lonzo. His 3-point shooting was terrible his first year, and every year he's improved his shooting. He's added like a bit of mid-range. He improved his threes, right? And he's not scared of trying. There's games he goes like 1 for 9, right, from 3, but he keeps on shooting because he knows like eventually he's going to get it down, and then that's why this year he was a 38% free 3-point shooter, right? So like, you know, I'd much rather have, if you're telling me down the stretch, would you rather have Ben Simmons out there or Alex Caruso? I'd rather have Alex Caruso out there because I know he's not scared to shoot, and I know he'll make the right moves. And I know Ben Simmons is just going to be afraid to have the ball in the last 2 minutes because they're afraid they're going to foul him and he has to go to the line and he's going to break 2 free throws, right?
I think the Sixers need a shooter, a Buddy Hield type shooter. Maybe like a young unproven player like Bagley. I think that kind of combination for them could get them over the hump. And then, you know, a defender like Simmons to the Kings, I would be okay with it. That's the solution in my eyes.
Yeah, I think right now there's like a lot of talk about Ben Simmons like just being like a fraud and just like unwilling to develop his game like you guys were talking about. But I do still think that like he's gonna fetch a lot in a trade still. I think like the dude has so much potential, and like you can't teach his size. He's like 6'9", 6'10". He can fly down the court. He is like preternatural vision. Like he can make these passes that 5, 6, 7 guys on the planet can. Like, so I think he's gonna fetch a pretty penny. But I'm just trying to search for what's the trade, like, because it seems pretty clear now that Philly can't run it back with this team. Like, you can't have Simmons and Embiid if you want to win a championship. So like I've heard Zach LaVine, I've heard CJ McCollum, I've heard like Dame Lillard, but none of them really seem to make sense.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, look, I'm harsh on Ben Simmons, but I'm not going to put like 100% of the blame on him because I also want to put the blame on the coaching staff. Like they don't really run anything for him, right? Like say what you like. Obviously he's not aggressive either, but they don't really run anything for him. Down the stretch, literally the play was set a screen, ISO Embiid in the post. That was literally the play every time down the floor. And like, you know, if you're not going to have any creativity on the offensive end, coupled with the fact that Ben Simmons' style of play doesn't really match up or like doesn't really pair good with Embiid's, like they're not really like compatible, right? Like, because I've heard like, you know, Ben Simmons would thrive in like a 5-out, like a Giannis, right? Like of, you know, having shooters all around him. But the thing is that you can't have that if you have Embiid in the paint. So I think you have, like, I don't know if you like just trade him just to trade him, like if you can get a good value, but like you said, Myles, I don't really know what they can get in a trade that would be like, you know, this is gonna like give them that next step. That was available. It was James Harden. It was literally James Harden, and they didn't take it. So I just don't really know what else they can get now.
Biggest mistake of their franchise.
They could have had Embiid and Harden. Like that would have been crazy because like you want to say like Harden was hurt, but he did get overplayed by the Nets. So like it's crazy. Like you pass on trading Ben Simmons, and then now you have Doc Rivers after the game saying, I don't know if he can be a championship winning point guard, right? Like like that's not a ringing endorsement at all. Like, yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting quote by Doc. But yeah, I think the Sixers, you got to look at this season as like a huge like collapse, because there was like on the Hawks side, like, you know, Nate McMillan, he did what he did coaching wise. He had great defensive and offensive rotations. He somehow snuck in like Trae Young and Lou Will minutes, like even though they're both awful on defense. And that's another thing that Philly didn't expose, right? Like when they were both on the floor, you attacked them both, but they didn't do any of that. So, I mean, as much as you say, like, as much as I want to say Trae Young was amazing and the Hawks were amazing, like there's no way Philly should have lost the series. Like there's no, a veteran team like Philly, they finished this off in 5 or 6 games. Like, there's no reason they should have lost this series.
I'd agree with that, but I still think we have to give the Hawks a good amount of credit. I mean, like they are another like surprise team. Like they're this year's Heat. With really just running with it, having a good group of guys that all click and that play off one another, play off each other's strengths, and I mean, I don't know how many guys how deep they are, like how many players, but they feel like they're a pretty deep team and that they're gonna like give all their guys some minutes. Even get Capella out there and just like, and they built around Trae Young, which is really what you have to do when you got a very good player like an all-star like type guy like Trae Young is, and he was the villain again of another series, like really making it very entertaining TV.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you gotta.
I love Trae Young as a villain. I don't care what city it is. The New York one was my favorite, but in Philly, I love Trae Young as a villain, and he's only the villain because they can't figure out the Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons situation.
Yeah, I mean, and like, props to the Hawks, like, role players. Like, Trae Young obviously stepped up, but in Game 7, Trae Young was not good. I mean, he made the shots when he needed to, but Game 7 he was pretty awful, right? But you had Kevon Herter. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Red Velvet.
Yeah, Red Velvet. Like, he just stepped up. He was huge.
I love it.
He was hunting Seth Curry like literally and he dropped. It was crazy. John Collins, he's been up and down offensively, but I mean, you can tell like he's, especially in that series where like rebounding was a big thing. He was on the glass, like he was boxing out. He was going for every rebound. I think I want to say in like one of the games he had like 17 rebounds. Like he was working. He was doing all the dirty work, and that you can't really not. Yeah, Game 7, he had 14 points, 16 rebounds. Like he was doing all the dirty work. He was doing all that. But yeah, I mean, shout out to them too. But obviously, I'm not taking anything away from the Atlanta Hawks. I'm just saying, like, when you're a team like Philly and the talent they had, I just really don't see a way like that you lose that series, especially the way Game 5 happened, right? And they blew like the 20 whatever point lead.
The Sixers should. I've seen people say the Sixers should have won that series 6-1 because in 6 of the games they were ahead and had like commanding leads and should have pulled it out, but they just, like, Doc Rivers classic choke job once again. Like, he doesn't know how to make adjustments, and like if Joel Embiid has 8 turnovers in Game 6 or like Game 5, I forget which one it was. Like, why are you gonna keep running the same actions for him in Game 7 when he keeps turning it over? And like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think obviously trading Simmons for an equal player would help their roster construction, but I just don't see that trade out there. And quite frankly, like, I think, yeah, the Sixers missed their chance with that Harden trade. I think the league would be so much better if we had James Harden in Philly and just Kyrie and Katie in Brooklyn, and we have like a little bit more parity. But I mean, who knows? This season, quite frankly, like, just a zoomed out take is just like, this season was a complete joke. They should have never came back so early. All these star players are getting injured in the playoffs when it matters most, just because the TV deal needed to get paid. The TV companies need to get paid their billions of dollars, or else they would go bankrupt, because Disney couldn't ever possibly afford cutting down 20 games in the NBA season to allow their players to, have some rest after a grueling bubble where these guys put it all on the line. Like, it's just really sad to see. I just think the profit motive is really harming sports, and it's becoming very obvious, as Omar's background shows.
I will agree with that. I think that we're gonna have to deal with whatever champions we get this year. But seeing a lot of these players go down just because of the shortened off season, the shortened season, and then having to play so many minutes in the postseason. I mean, the reason James Harden didn't play for those first few games was because he had to carry the Brooklyn Nets because Katie and Kyrie had been injured during the season. So it robs us of seeing these stars, but we do get to see the next generations of stars like Trae Young and Drew Holiday and Joel Embiid. I think that you're right. It's really been a money grab, but I'm still enjoying watching basketball, even if it's just watching these young guys who have only been in the league for a few years get their chance at a championship. But I would much rather see, and Omar's going to love this, LeBron versus Kevin Durant and James Harden. But hopefully next year, when everybody gets healthy, and we can see something like that, because this year just wasn't it. This was clearly for the money, and now we know we've gotten through it, and hopefully next season we can come back with something better.
Agreed on that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Myles.
I was just gonna say 100% agree. I also just want to say, like, the Western and Eastern Conference Finals don't have like the big ticket like stars or names that we're used to, but like the first two games of the Clippers Suns were really good. And right now, Trae Young just had a 25-point first half. And
last night was ridiculous with that lob to DeAndre Ayton. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So I almost think it's a good thing that, like, in this kind of weird year where so many of the normal NBA like top echelon like number one players are out of the playoffs already, like it's nice to see like the basketball is still amazing and we're watching like high intensity, like extremely impressive execution. And like you were saying, Josh, like the next generation is showing they're taking over, like Devin Booker, Trae Young. They're like, these dudes are putting their name on the map. And it's just really exciting because I think basketball is in a really good place for the future.
Speaking of Devin Booker, I guess we could get on to the Western Conference with the Suns. As the prophet says, Suns in 4, it was delivered. The Suns beat the Denver Nuggets in 4. Again, a great series for the Suns. And honestly, to me, it looks like the Suns are, like, I think they might just be the best shooting team left in this playoffs, because every time I've watched them, I'm like, okay, they're not going to shoot this well again. But they're just not, and then they keep doing it. They have these stretches where whether it's either these role players that do something or Devin Booker just like catches fire like every game, and it's honestly become kind of reliable. Like I really do think like that this team, like I'm just convinced that every time they need it, they're gonna have this stretch where they just don't miss.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
I did not. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I don't know if we're on the topic of like the Suns. Yeah, we're on topic of the Suns Nuggets. Like, I don't really have much to say. Like, it was just like a complete mismatch, right? Like Denver, Coach Mike Malone said like after they lost the series, like they weren't even supposed to be there, and he caught criticism for that because like obviously like it sounded like an excuse or whatever, but honestly, he's one of the more honest coaches in the league. And it's true. Like, there was no way Denver should have been in that position. There's no way they should have beat Portland. Portland was a much better team. But, I think we're overlooking that. And, I mean, Denver, suffered from, injuries and stuff like that. So, obviously, everyone else has as well. But, I mean, in that series, I just think, like, you can't really overcome the limitations that Denver already had. And with a team like the Suns who were shooting just, lights out. Right. So that was one of the series. That was like the one series of like of the second round that was kind of like, open and shut. Like you had the thing that happened in Game 4 with Jokic getting ejected. But I mean, that was just really like, it was whatever. Like that was the most exciting thing to probably happen in the series. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really have much to say, but I mean, Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton have just been really stamping themselves as like, we're the next generation. Like we're gonna be here for a while. And I had my question on DeAndre Ayton, but again, I think that series against Jokic, like the defense he played, like Jokic still got his numbers and stuff like that, but the defense Ayton played on Jokic and like just shutting him off, like it was a huge step for him. I think it was just huge.
I also had my questions on DeAndre Ayton. All my answers got solved last night because that play. I watched the original when Tyson Chandler got thrown the lob, and I called it because I knew DeAndre Ayton was going to get the ball. But watching DeAndre Ayton just glide through the air over Ivica Zubac, who is like one of the biggest men in all of the NBA, so I got to give it up to Ayton. But you're right, I didn't expect the Suns to play the way that they did. It was a complete mismatch, and they took it to their advantage. This series now is probably going to be way more exciting, but I've enjoyed watching these small name teams, these small guys, these young guys stamp their names in the game. And that's the most exciting thing about this playoffs, even dealing with injury. I think that's part of the reason the Nuggets went down so easily is because of injury. And I shout out to Jokic because he got ejected, but it wasn't on something that he felt he did on purpose. And so he went in and apologized to him. So shout out to Jokic for being a stand-up guy on the court, even though they're already down 3-0 in the series, he gets ejected and still goes over to the guy to make sure he's okay. But it was a 4-0, like Suns in 4. I don't think it's gonna happen on this series now, but I shout out to the dude who said Suns in 4 because it has turned into momentum for the Suns fans.
He was the prophet. He was the prophet.
And more fights somehow. I don't know how that works.
Yeah. Honestly, what it kind of tells me is like I mean, we knew the Nuggets probably weren't gonna be much of a threat without Jamal Murray. I mean, I kind of thought we might be able to get through it, but when no one else is really giving you a consistent production outside of Jokic, it's gonna be hard to win especially when the Suns shoot that well. Also, I also have to kind of make an apologies to DeAndre Ayton because I said Nikola Jokic would take advantage of that mismatch, and I said it. I thought that wasn't what's going to happen with the Lakers, and I thought it was going to happen with the Nuggets, but he's held his ground. He's done his best. I know there's some injuries, Omar. I know that's why you're unmuting right now, but he hasn't got as exposed as we thought he would, and I have to apologize to the guy. He looks legit.
I would just like to point out that the last time the Suns lost in the playoffs was 80% Lakers team. So just want to put that out there.
All right, I'm headed out, everyone. Thank you for having me. I will be back
Will.
on next time we record.
Morning, Will.
You will.
See ya.
Later, Will.
All right, so I guess we can get into our last series with the LA Clippers beating the team's already escaped. The Jazz. I honestly almost forgot about them. 4-2. Finally, I guess down 0-2 again, they come back and win despite having quite a bit of adversity with no Kawhi Leonard. Any thoughts you guys?
I'm not even upset that the Jazz couldn't hold their own. I'm more upset that Rudy Gobert got 3 Defensive Player of the Years and can't get out the second round. I mean, everyone on the court was shredding Rudy Gobert. He had a couple great plays at the end of the series, but by then it's too late. If you're going to be Defensive Player of the Year, you have to show up on defense and push your team to that next level so they can win games. And yeah, I know it was also same thing, injury on injury. But when you're a player of Rudy Gobert's caliber, you have to be that pillar for your team. And I think Shaq says it all the time, where if you're not that pillar for your team, you can expect to lose a game because if you don't show up, the rest of the team's not going to show up. And you know what? Jazz are gone. On to the next one. That's all. That's how I'm gonna put it.
Look, I'm I hate being that I told you so guy. I think it's
That's a lie. That's a lie. No.
But that being said, I told you guys about Gobert, and you guys were just talking trash that I was slandering him and stuff like that. But I told you when it comes down to it, look, he's a great regular season guy. I'd love to have him for the mid-level exception, but you're never going to win with him as a Supermax player. And the Jazz got off to a 2-0 start, and a lot of it is to Ty Lue. Ty Lue has become, he's solidified this postseason as he's a legit coach. He wasn't a product of LeBron, right? He's a legit coach. The adjustments he's made in the first 2 rounds, what we saw in round 1, them going small, right? Especially down the stretch, if you look at the Clippers going small, Utah played the drop coverage, right? Because Gobert can't guard the perimeter at all. And if you bring him up, they're just going to blow by him. But, when down the stretch, the Clippers always, when Utah was in drop, they literally set the screen and there was always an open man in the corner or a drive to the paint where we saw no one was scared of Gobert. especially in Game 6. Like they were acting like he was a cone, like he was not there. Like no one was scared of him. And yeah, I just think like the fact that Gobert makes the Jazz go and drop, it's just a hard thing to kind of like overcome, right? Like he doesn't give you, we'll get to it when we get to the Suns Clippers, but he doesn't give you that offensive edge that you could say like, oh, he could punish the Clippers for going small, right? Like he can get offensive boards and stuff, which he did, but I mean, just like, it's not really, he really can't do anything other than that, maybe catch lobs and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, credit to Ty Lue for changing up the game plan, and he's not scared of hurting guys' feelings, as we saw. Like Rondo got like, I think like 4 DNPs. Like he didn't even play for most of the games. Like he's not scared of egos and stuff like that. So yeah, that was huge. And obviously the Jazz's defensive rotations were awful as well. But I just had a quick question for you guys. I don't know if this is a bit of an overreaction, but I mean, that's 2 straight years of Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz, blowing series leads. Is it maybe time to like, look at them a little side-eyed, maybe look at them a little different, or start questioning Donovan Mitchell, things like that? Like he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's interesting.
I don't think it's time to blow up the team yet. I don't think so. I think you give it one more year, you let them see if they can grab somebody in the off season and see what happens from there. It's not time to blow up yet. Donovan Mitchell has enormous growth left still. And Rudy Gobert, like I said, defensive player of the year 3 times in a row. So, well, I mean, we'll see, but it's not time to completely implode yet.
Yeah, I think the issue with the Jazz's roster is they don't have any big wing defenders. So like everyone's talking in the NBA now, like you need the defensive stoppers to, throw at the Paul Georges of the world, or the Kawhi Leonards, or the LeBron James, the Kevin Durant. And the Jazz have Royce O'Neal. Like that's literally their best perimeter defender. And so like the thing with the Gobert discourse, I feel like, is like in the regular season when you just have a team, that comes into Utah for a random game, right? They're not really gonna like try to pull what the Clippers did, like the go small, have 5 wings basically on the floor, because it's hard to do that for just a random game. You want to stick with what you know. So I think the issue is in the playoffs, like you were saying, Omar, he gets played off the floor because the wing defenders on the Clippers, on the Jazz, aren't good enough to stop penetration. So that pulls Rudy into the paint to try to stop it, but then it leaves a wide open Nick Batum, or a wide open Luka Doncic, or a wide open Marcus Morris out on the 3-point line. And like Gobert can't really do anything about that. So like, it's just, once again, it's like the teams that lose in the playoffs generally have flawed rosters. And like, it's a really hard decision when you have Rudy Gobert being paid like the 3rd highest contract in the NBA. Like you can't really do anything. You're not going to be able to get like an amazing wing defender to help your team out. So it's like they're kind of just maxed out, unless, like you're saying, Josh, Donovan Mitchell just goes bonkers next year. Like he definitely can. He has so much potential. But I just think the main issue with the team is that defensive wing stopper that they need.
I just think their defense in general. Sorry, Pat, you want to go ahead?
Oh no, I was saying no Don slander allowed in my in my Zoom meeting, but what's it called? I think that's completely valid what you guys are saying, and you could go ahead, Omar. I was just gonna say something like that. You guys pretty much hit what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like the Utah's defensive rotations were awful in general. Like aside from Gobert was bad, but I mean the Clippers had so many open shots. Like the rotations were not good. And the thing is that like they, I always mention like the jump shooting teams, right? When the Jazz went cold, they went like cold, like terribly. Like they could not buy a bucket. And the thing that these teams fall under is that they don't attack the basket. And it's like, what are you doing? Like you have to attack the basket. Like literally, if you're in a drought and you can't make any threes, go to the paint, right? Like maybe take some mid ranges and stuff like that. But I like what you mentioned, Myles, about the roster construction. This guy, his name's Nekias Duncan. I don't know if you guys know. It's a great NBA guy. I'd recommend checking out the podcast. The podcast he has, the Dunker Spot. It's a great podcast. But he said like Royce O'Neal as a wing defender, like he's a good wing defender. Like it's good to have. But if he's your best wing defender, like no, like that's not gonna work. Exactly. So it's like the way the Jazz were constructed was that they had no ability to go small, right? Like they couldn't go small at all. Like they had like Gobert should have been played off the floor, but whether it's a contract thing or they just really had like that was possibly the best lineup they had no ability to go small. Like who are they going to play? Like Royce and you at the 5? Like that's can't really put that, right? So you mentioned Matt, like the way they're set up, their roster construction doesn't give them the ability to do that. So I just think that's what their downfall was, and they have an interesting offseason to come along.
So I feel like so many teams are in that position, right, where they had these playoff failures, where like the 76ers and the Jazz were the 1 seed. This is the year everyone's saying, oh, they can finally get over the hump, and they both don't. Like they have to make changes on one level, but there's no easy answers out there. You're like, it's really hard to improve off of a 1 seed season. So it's tough. I just wanted to say I just watched Trae Young throw an alley-oop to John Collins off the backboard that blew my mind. Like
it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. Amazing. I love their duo. Honestly, they work really well together.
Yeah, definitely. I know Omar is probably enjoying that Rudy Gobert is now out of the playoffs, but now he does have to wait for his other like most hated player, playoff P, who, I mean, he's shown up. He's shown up, especially in that Jazz series, and game 1, he was there. So, I mean, big props to him on actually getting them past the Jazz when, like, again, once Kawhi went down, a lot of people were like, oh, it's over. The Jazz got this. Like, you know, prepare for the Jazz Milwaukee final now. Like, it's over, you know. Like, playoff P, like, prevented that from happening and gave Adam Silver some hope. So maybe that's another reason you're probably not going to like him, Omar. But it's definitely he's one that you're going to be looking out for in this next series if they're going to turn it back around, which we can now get into our conference final predictions if you guys want. Like, we can start with the West now with the Clippers down 2-0 to the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
momentum is on the Sun side. Is all I'm going to say, and with no Kawhi and with Paul George didn't show up to the 4th until last night, and so it's we need Paul George to be consistent. And yes, he was consistent through the Jazz series because Kawhi went down, but we need him to be like 30-point playoff P for this series too, or I don't think the Clippers will get through. I think the Suns, no Chris Paul, are still up 2-0. And once you add Chris Paul to that equation, series over.
I think go for it, Pat.
Yeah, I was just to say, like, I gotta repeat that. Like last night, like what we just saw was, playoff P. He had a good 4th quarter, but if he plays better throughout that whole game, they're probably winning that. Like, he didn't really step it up. He had a really tough first 3 quarters where he was turning the ball over, not making his shots. He does have to drop 30, but you're also going to rely on you're going to need another guy like a Terrence Mann or a Reggie Jackson, who's also, both of those guys have played better. They've stepped up, but you need Paul George to be that number 1 guy, that alpha, if you want to have a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, by the way, Josh, I think you were using the "we need Paul George" thing a little too loosely. I don't know about "we," right? I think I'm not really on that side, but yeah, I mean, like, look, I am one to, I slander a lot, but I also like to give props. Like, Paul George has been like amazing. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, like, he's been great. Especially that one game he dropped 39, I believe it was. Like, he's been really good, and I can't hate that. I give props where it's due. Whereas the thing is, like, he even played good yesterday in the 4th quarter, but I mean, we got to talk about the free throws, right? Like, that's nothing more than a choke. Like, you got to call it what it is. Like, I don't think he's 90%, but he's probably close to 90% free throw shooter. And he missed both. Like, that's just a choke. Like, he just crumbled under the pressure. Like, I can't say it any other way. Like, he was, it overshadowed the whole game and the whole fourth quarter he had, which he was great. But I mean, come on, like it was a choke. And I think that game 2 yesterday kind of felt to me like one of those wins where like the series is over. Honestly, I think the Clippers really needed that one.
I mean, they've been down 0-2 the past 2 series, and somehow Ty Lue has found the magic. But I just think this is different because the Suns team is so complete. Like DeAndre Ayton, that fool is going off. He was hitting mid-range jumpers. He was being a defensive force. He was just like everywhere on the court. And he's like not even their best player. Like Devin Booker, that dude, he's scoring whenever he wants. He obviously, I think the defense was a bit physical, as we could say, from Pat Bev last game. So, I mean, he had some difficulties that he wasn't having in the first game. But, like, yeah, CP3's coming back. I don't think Kawhi's coming back for the Clippers. It's a wrap. As Omar said, as Patrick said, we just got to listen to the prophet for this one, Suns in 4. But I think it's still, it's still a very successful season for the Clippers because you lose your best player and you're still in the Western Conference Finals for the first time in your franchise's history. So I think they shouldn't be too discouraged. This Suns team is just a buzzsaw, and I'm just excited to see them in the finals.
Yeah, like I don't want to say. Go for it.
I was just saying, like, I didn't realize that. I forgot all about that. Like the whole the Clippers can't get past the second round jokes. Like they did it. Like I honestly, that went over my head. Like, kind of feel bad for that. Also, as for Paul George,
never.
But yeah, like as for Paul George, like I know he choked. Like I don't want to sugarcoat it, but at the same time, ball don't lie. They should have never even had it. Like I know that he had the opportunity. We can't go off a hypothetical and like you can only do what the refs say, but I really do think like ball don't lie. Sometimes like it's just some force that I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just gonna go with it. Like I really do think he missed those 2 free throws because that's not how it's supposed to be. Like you weren't even supposed to have the ball in the first place. So I'm not too critical of Paul George. I know like a lot of the timeline on Twitter was, but I kind of like, I mean, yeah, especially Omar, but I don't know.
I'm not critical of him. I just want better for him. You know what I mean? Because through the Jazz series, he showed us the Paul George that we saw before he joined the Clippers. The Paul George we saw when he was playing with Westbrook for that one season. Like we saw that Paul George again. And I just want to see more of that because we know he can give us that level every single game. I don't know. I'm not gonna be too critical of him, but I do understand why people are skeptical of Paul George to begin with.
Also, like I think I saw a stat saying the Clippers have played 15 games in the last 30 days. Like the NBA playoff schedule totally screwed them over, and it's really unfair, especially when like Ty Lue's going to be running basically for the next game, probably a 7-man rotation. Like Paul George is going to be so gassed. It's really tough.
I just saw Danilo Gallinari mix up like cross up PJ Tucker in like the slowest move I've ever seen and like step back. But anyways, I was in awe of that. That was just, it was crazy. Anyways, I think like Myles, you mentioned that like they've been down 0-2 in the last 2 series, but this is the first time they've been down 0-2 without Kawhi. And I don't know about you guys, but like, when the Suns beat the Lakers, I was like, they beat a hurt Lakers team and whatever. But it's kind of starting to feel like me, like they're like that team of destiny, right? Where it's like everything's literally clicking. Devin Booker didn't have a good game yesterday, and they found a way to win. They only shot, what is this? I have the number right here. They only shot 23% from 3, and they managed to win the game. Like they find a way to win. And if Devin Booker's not having a good game, you have Campaign there, and then you have DeAndre Ayton going off, and you have Jay Crowder who figured it out now, or like you got people making shots and people just contributing. And I think like the difference between this 0-2 and the other 0-2 is that, and the other 0-2s is that there's like the other 0-2s, Ty Lue made that adjustment, right? I don't know what adjustment you can make in this series to really like you already threw out the Pat Bev on Devin Booker. You're probably going to keep that the rest of the series. Fine. But I mean, you can't really do anything about DeAndre Ayton. Like this is a perfect series. This would have been a perfect series for Ibaka if he was healthy. right? Because like you at least throw a body on him and he can at least threaten him on the offensive end. But like if you put Zubac on him, like he's too slow, and you can't go small because you saw what he did to your small lineup. He was just literally grabbing offensive rebounds like if it was like over little kids, right? Like if you just do it over little kid, like he's just grabbing him and then just putting him in. And like they've tried the zone, they just can't because Phoenix is too good at the mid-range and too good at passing too, to like for you to go zone, right? And yeah, the difference that I see between this 0-2 and the other 0-2 is just that I just don't really know like where you can go from here. Like unless Kawhi comes back, I really have like the Suns in 5. Like unless Kawhi just somehow, his pain tolerance.
I don't think it's happening. I think he's gone.
Me either. I think he's done too. But that's what I'm saying. Like I don't unless if you're gonna tell me Terrence Mann's gonna drop 39 again, like all right, I'll power to you, right? Like they're gonna need someone else to step up. But even with Reggie Jackson averaging more than 20 and Marcus Morris going crazy sometimes too, like I just don't think they have enough. And yeah, the Suns just kind of feel like that team where no matter what adjustments you throw, they always just find a way to win. And DeAndre Ayton's legit, so you can't really, you can't do the Rudy Gobert thing on him because he can actually threaten you on the offensive end and the defensive end. So yeah.
100%. I guess we could throw out our predictions now. I think I've said this before in the chat, but the Prophet is going to get it. They're going to get it again. 4-0, they're going to get the sweep. I know that's probably what you don't want, Josh. I know you said that this would probably be a closer series, but I think the Prophet, you can't go against the Prophet. He's a pretty violent person, so you can't really go.
I don't think it's going to be like super close, but I'll at least give the Clippers a game. I'll give them a game. No Kawhi. PG steps up. Terrence Mann steps up. Even Marcus Morris. Like Marcus Morris was getting buckets, so I will give them at least a game. But I do feel like the Suns pull it out overall. And I out of everything that has happened this NBA season, I could not be more happy for Chris Paul if he goes to the championship and wins. If that is the saving grace for me of the Suns winning a championship is Chris Paul finally gets a ring. I'll take it.
Yeah, that would be great. Also, just want to bring up how well Cam Payne played in that last game. Like that dude was out of the league and he dropped 29. Like
give
the fact that
lifetime achievement award. Like the way he's turned around his career is crazy.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And so like I think Suns in 4, maybe 5. Maybe the Clippers will steal game 3. I don't know, but like it just seems like the Suns have an answer for everything, like you said, Omar. Like they always know what to do, and Monty Williams is like really proving himself to be one of the best coaches in the league. Like as a Knicks fan,
he really should have won Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I was about to say that. As a Knicks fan, I was happy to see Thibodeau win it, but I still feel like Monty kind of deserved it.
Yeah, my prediction, I said it, but Suns in 5. I think the Clippers are going to have a game at home where they just shoot lights out. I don't know. My guess is going to be game 3, and then everyone's like, oh, it's 2-1, right? But then I think the Suns steal game 4 and then just close it out in Phoenix because they're just absolutely impossible to beat in Phoenix. Like they're they're only, by the way, the only home loss they have this year is against the Lakers. But anyhow, that's like, that's not the point. The point is that, yeah, I just have them in 5. And this doesn't have to do with the prediction, but I just want to say, like, what the heck was that Clippers defense on that last play? Like, if you're going to have Zubac in, you have to go zone. Why is he guarding Ayton on the perimeter? Like, why? Like, there's no reason for him to be, like, he's too slow to recover from a pick. Like, Devin Booker set the pick, so he's not exactly the biggest guy. But he set the pick, and he couldn't recover from that. So, like, why? If you have Zubac in, you have to go zone. Just keep him near the rim, no lobs. If Devin Booker gets, like, a shot and maybe you don't get a great contest, I'd much rather have, I don't care who it is, I'd much rather them attempt a jump shot than a alley-oop dunk for the win, right? So, like, I don't know what
did you catch Gobert? Did you catch him grab his jersey? Did you catch DeAndre Ayton grab his jersey and push him into the screen?
I did catch that. I put it in the chat. That was like, it was a nifty move, but definitely a foul.
But they're not going to call that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. The refs were super quick. Just saw Solomon Hill blow by for a dunk. Sorry. But like, don't get me wrong. Like, it was a foul, but the way the refs were going, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they called it. But I mean, unless it was like, it wasn't like, he pulled it the whole time down there. Like he just pulled it like briefly and then he just let it go. And, you know, it is what it is. And Clippers fans are complaining about that. But there's a lot of calls down the stretch that, you know, I would want to say like, you know, Clippers fans, I'd probably sit this one out.
Just one quick note before we move on to the other series. Huge shout out to Phoenix. Like I've seen so many videos of the Phoenix fans, like Suns fans going crazy because it's finally their time. Like, you know, this is like the best they've been since the Steve Nash era. And I don't know, I just seen them all excited and going into the games and just getting super amped up. That's been a ton of fun. Just happy for them to finally experience that as a small market team.
The Phoenix crowd is crazy. Like the Phoenix crowd is, even on TV, you can tell. And just a quick side note, like I listened to this crime podcast and they're both from Phoenix and they're Suns fans. And they've been like, they were around from like the 90s, like the Charles Barkleys and stuff like that. So like one of the guys was like, yeah, but how are they going to hurt us this time? That's kind of what they've built into their head of like, you know, how are they going to hurt us this time? Like, you know, will they just blow a lead or will they do something like that? I mean, but it's like, if I would want to see a team win, I want to see the Suns or the Bucks. Just the Bucks because of Giannis. I really like Giannis, and the Suns just for, you know, CP3. And I think that would be a great story. And as bad as the season's been, yeah, we can at least take that out of it, right? Like, might as well.
It's sad that the small market teams are so used to being let down that they're like, well, how can they disappoint us now?
Yeah, 100%. Like I listen to a fantasy football podcast and they're all from Phoenix. They live in Arizona, so they're pretty much at every game. And it's like just seeing their videos of them going crazy, like rally the valley and all that. It's like, it's good for you guys. Like finally, I know you don't got much with the Cardinals, but you know, I mean they're on the come up, but you know, like they haven't been relevant for a while now. But yeah, I mean, it's just good for them. We can move on to the last one, which is happening right now. A quick score update, if any of you guys can drop that real quick.
I'm probably behind, but it's Atlanta 92, Milwaukee 90. Not 840. Yeah, I'm like behind 840.
You're actually ahead of me then. Yeah, you're ahead of me by like 10 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're Hawks hold a slim lead, but was that Carson Palmer slander, Patrick? Like, did you just slander?
I mean, I remember that era, but I'm just talking about like Super Bowls. Like,
forget
here, like
that city.
They haven't been one since Kurt Warner, and they had that ripped away from them by an amazing catch.
All right.
That's forever gonna be in my memories. But to this series, like, I'll just go out with my prediction. I think the Bucks are gonna win it in 6. I would have probably said 5 before the game happened, but it really just looks like the Hawks really. They don't care. They're going to play tough no matter what. They know they don't, you know, they're going to go through with it. For all they know, this might be their last time making it this far. Maybe that's not the outlook they want to have. They actually have, but I don't know. Like they seem to think like, hey, it doesn't matter what team we're playing. We've been the underdogs multiple times. We're going to go out there and, you know, give it our all. We don't care. And plus the Bucks, you know, they have some question marks. So I still think they'll win it, but the Hawks are going to play it tough.
I think no one expected the Hawks to like make it this far. And outside of Bogdanovich, who had a great second round and has shot awful in the last game and this game, I think the Hawks have a decent team. I feel like they could do it. I'm going to say Hawks it's probably going to take another 7-game series. I'll say Hawks in 7.
I will say I don't know if I'm right, but I want to say that Josh was the only one that picked the Hawks over the Sixers, but I'm not sure because I would have to look back on it, but I think he picked the Hawks. I'm not sure.
I feel like you're correct. Because I saw the way Trae Young was playing and he just could not be stopped. And the way he was playing against New York is you can tell when a player gets into that mindset that they become unstoppable. And Trae Young has been playing like he's invincible no matter what city he's in. And this is their We Believe season. I really feel like they could pull this out.
Yeah, I think.
But I don't want them to. I want Chris Paul to get a ring before Trae Young. So I feel like the Hawks could get there, but Chris Paul deserves that ring.
Yeah, my prediction is Bucks in 5. I actually coming into it, I was told my friend that the Hawks would win game 1 and then the Bucks would win 4 straight. I just think that like I don't love the matchup for the Hawks. Obviously, right now they're in it, but I just don't love the matchup. Like like in terms of like, you know, who they match up. Because look, whether it was the Hawks or the Sixers, I still like the Bucks over them. But I just think in terms of personnel, the Hawks, I don't love it because like they're doing like a fine job, but there's really like no one to really guard Giannis. And, you know, Capella might, you know, he can't really stay in the paint because, you know, you got Brooks stretching the floor. And I think this, if it comes true of Bucks in 5, there has to be a Giannis series. Like he just has to go off. Like there's no other point. Like Middleton might have his game here and there, but he has to go off. And I mean, I think it could be like a spark of like, now you can play Bryn Forbes and Bobby Portis again, because last series they just basically non-existent because it was the Nets and you can't really like play Bryn Forbes out there, or else they're just going to hunt him every time. So yeah, and I just think like the way the Hawks are set up, I just don't really know how they could win this like series. Like against Philly, they were able to attack the basket and like they're a pretty good mid-range team. So they can like, you know, when Philly went drop with Dwight or Embiid on the floor, because they had to, right? Like Embiid was hobbled, so he couldn't really move on the perimeter like that. They had to go drop. So they took advantage of that, or they pressured the basket. But I just think like the ability that the Bucks have of like keep on fighting through screens, and they're able to switch a lot too. I just think it's like a hard thing to overcome. So yeah, but I still I love Trae Young. I just think it's like a terrible like matchup.
I totally hear that, and I'm watching like the beginning of this game, just like Capella was having real issues with Giannis, and that's definitely gonna remain the case. But I think Coach Bud's coaching philosophy of drop, pick, and roll is gonna allow Trae Young to just cook, and Kevin Huerter to just cook, and if Bogdanovich is healthy, to cook. So like, just looking at the rosters on paper, it's like, yeah, the Bucks should win. They have Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. But the Hawks just have this fight in them that, like, I don't know. It does remind me, like you said, Josh, of that We Believe Warriors team. So it's a really tough decision. I think I'm gonna go Hawks in 6, actually, just because I think, you know, like we've seen the Suns, I would say, have the most complete roster in the Western Conference. I think the Hawks have the most complete top to bottom roster in the East. Like they have so many good, like Gallinari. Like no one thought he was good, but the dude is balling. Like I watched him cook the Knicks and guard Julius Randle admirably. Like he played pretty well in the last series. Like they have a bunch of guys they can throw out on the court that are quality basketball players. And with the Bucks, like I don't really think that's the case. Like they're gonna have to throw out Pat Connaughton for real minutes and Bryn Forbes for real minutes, and like that's a mismatch.
Is this Pat Connaughton slander? Did you not see the threes he hit in Game 7? Those are huge.
Those were big. That was the Pat Connaughton game for sure. But like, I don't know.
Other than that, yes, this is Pat Connaughton slander.
No, honestly, like I get where you guys are coming from. If this series does go longer than 5, it's gonna be because, like, don't get me wrong, like the Hawks, like you said, Myles, they're absolute fighting team. Like they've earned so much respect this postseason. Like it's crazy. Like they're legit. Someone mentioned like no one thought they'd be here. No one even thought they'd be in the playoffs. Like they were in a terrible position like when they fired their head coach midseason. So like I don't know. They obviously have that fight in them, as they just took a 4-point lead. They have that fight in them. Obviously, I just don't like if it's gonna go long, the series is gonna go long. It's gonna be because of Coach Bud and doing Coach Bud things and making it harder than it needs to be. Because like I mentioned when we talked about the Brooklyn Milwaukee series, they should not have won that game. So if they have enough of those games where the Hawks can take it from them, because we've seen the Hawks, if you let them around in the game, they know how to close. Like they one way or another, either Trae Young or someone else is making shots. So yeah, I don't know. I think if it does go long, that's going to be why. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing like it'll hold for a whole series.
Definitely. Aggie Talk is split 2-2 in this chat, but we'll see. Maybe Will can break the tie some if we get, ask him.
Will said Hawks. He told me before he hopped off.
Oh, then congrats. You guys at 3-2. We'll see. Honestly, what I find pretty crazy is that I said when we first made our predictions for the playoffs, like I literally said Bucks Suns as a joke. Like I was just going with Bob because Bob said Suns, so I was like, all right, I'll go with them, like kind of like as a joke, but it might actually turn out to be true. So I just find that funny. Anyways, if you guys want to get any final thoughts off, we can do that. But yeah, what's anything you guys want to get off your chest?
Quick final.
I just want to thank. You said what, Omar?
Go for it. Go for it.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say thanks to the Supreme Court. Like, it's a start. It's a stepping stone. And y'all know how and it's paying college athletes. It's a start. The NCAA, it might not be sustainable as a business plan anymore. So you just change the business plan. Companies do it all the time. And Myles, your idea of the NBA Academy is a hop, skip, and a jump away for the NBA, and it'll be easy. So yeah, pay your college athletes. If you don't, they'll go to the G League.
Yeah, and my final thought, for all the hype like coming into it, I was worried about like the Warriors maybe getting like high picks, right? Like from the draft lottery. But I mean, they still got solid picks. You got 7 and 14. But I do have like friends that are Warriors fans, and I've also seen like Warriors fans on Twitter. And I wonder like how much do they really care about winning? When you hear of what the owner, like what the Joe Lacob says and stuff like that, like the way the vibes he just gives off is like, yeah, I don't know if they like want to win. Like if they want to win now, because I mean, if you're a win now team, if you want to make one more run with Clay and Curry, you trade those 2 picks and you try to get, I don't know. I've seen Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner thrown out there, right? Like that would be huge. That would be amazing for them. Or I've seen, maybe a Zach LaVine or something like just something that you can help you win now, because as much as these rookies might be huge in like 3-4 years, if you really want to give, Curry's what, like 34, 33, 34. Clay, he's coming off 2 major surgeries. Like if you want to win now, you trade those picks. And I don't know. I just don't really, if you guys look at what like the Warriors owners have said, don't really love it. And then like, just to get me like more hyped real quick. He had this quote the other day. Actually like I think like a day or 2 ago, he had a quote, and he said, they asked him about Steph Curry leaving in free agency next year. And he said, look, Steph Curry, if he really wanted to leave at the end of the contract, he's a free agent. He's earned the right. He can do it. And he basically said like, he wouldn't hate it. But like, I don't know if I'm an owner and you say like, do you want Steph Curry to leave? Like, no, like I want him to be a Warrior for life. Right. So I don't know. I just found a lot of that interesting. And this Warrior season is going to be huge. I'm interested to see what happens, but they have those 2 picks. They got to make a move to win now.
I agree. I for my final thought, it's kind of in a similar vein. I just want to know who the next NBA superstar is who's going to get traded, because like this summer is going to be crazy. So many teams had like failures in the playoffs, and so many teams had like surprising seasons like my Knicks, where it's like some teams are hunting for superstars and other teams are very clearly like, this guy's going to want out soon. So I'm just excited. Like, is it going to be Bradley Beal? Is it going to be Karl Anthony Towns? Is it going to be, I don't know, someone a little bit lower profile, like who just gets traded not because they ask out, but just because the GM wants to, like CJ McCollum of Portland. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of movement, and I'm just excited. This league is so much fun to watch, and but I think the other aspect of it that I really like is just all of the drama in the offseason, like people getting traded. All of a sudden you hear a Woj bomb, bam, radically changes the league like in a second. And I'm just really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think the obvious choices, to just answer your question real quick, Myles. Sorry, Pat, I'll just real quick. The obvious choices, obviously, CJ McCollum and Ben Simmons. But if I had to guess, I honestly think Bradley Beal gets traded. I think he actually does get traded. Whether it's
Is he going to the Olympics?
I believe so. I don't know.
Okay, so I feel like after the Olympics, which is like Tamper Fest of the century, then we'll figure out what big names are getting traded. But like all these players going to the Olympics is really the ability to be like, yeah, this organization will look out for you. We have a contending team, so why wouldn't you want to come here? If you ask out, they'll let you out. Or like if you complain enough, you know what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you complain enough and somebody wants off of these teams, I agree. It's probably gonna be Bradley Beal, and Ben Simmons is probably like a gimme just because. But we'll see where they land. But the Olympics, every year there's an Olympic Games, it is like Tamper Fest of the century because there's these guys and they just happen to be from the U.S. and play professional ball on all different teams, and this is a chance for them to get together, play professional ball for their country, and also talk about the moves that they should make.
I wonder if Team USA needs some help. I'm pretty sure Rob Pelinka would be, he'd be a great assistant over there. So if we can get that done, I think if we can send Rob Pelinka to Team USA, I'd love that. So yeah, just.
I don't think him and Greg Popovich would get along.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just happy you didn't say Zach LaVine there because he's my only hope. Also, just for my final thought, the Padres and the Dodgers are playing again tonight. I've been watching that. I mean, I've started watching a lot of baseball this year. It's really going to help me get to the NFL season because by next month is really where I start to get antsy, where I'm like, oh my God, I need the NFL back already. But baseball is kind of like hopefully going to suppress that urge. And I've been watching the Padres and Dodgers every time it's on. It's a great series. It's the hottest rivalry in sports. Or at least right now. I know that just killed Omar, but I mean it's been a ton of fun, and I'm probably gonna go watch that right now. And again, seeing Ryan and Omar go after, maybe mainly Ryan going after Omar's neck in the group chat is really funny. Like he's very competitive, and
that's what happens when like you don't win often, right? Like
Or how about never? How about the Padres literally never
exactly.
winning?
You get cocky and stuff like that. But as someone who's been around the block a couple of times with the Dodgers, like I'm just waiting. Just if you can laugh last, you laugh the best. So I'm just kind of chilling right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely gonna be fun. I'm probably gonna go watch that, check it out. Or actually, how many minutes are left in the basketball game?
There's like 5. Yeah.
I got 4
All
minutes.
right.
Yeah, like 4 minutes and some change.
All right, so we're probably gonna go see the end of that, but you guys know how we like to end it.
Go Ags!
Go Ags!